All right, man. So, I'm in the same clothes as yesterday, and it's because I pulled an all-nighter. So, forgive my appearance and my breath. Anyway, a lot of stuff going on. Markets dumping all over the place. Markets are melting everywhere. All the markets are melting. So don't be like, oh, I should have stayed in, Bermuda grass commodity shares and blah 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 blah. You weren't going to escape this. Me personally, from a logic, side of things, that perspective, right? It's difficult for me to understand why people are, divesting from whatever they're holding at the sound of war, the announcement of war, the commencement of war. It's very, terrible. In war, very bad things happen. People get killed, innocent people get killed, women get raped, kids get raped, men also get raped, houses, lives, towns destroyed, precious heirlooms and artifacts lost forever, families broken up and split up. War is really something horrific, and in the vast majority of scenarios it's even unnecessary. But the whole idea that because the U.S. goes to war, that the markets or people, investors, should be divesting out of their, assets in their portfolio. I mean, it doesn't necessarily make much sense, especially because the U.S. is, insulated from war. Period. Pretty much. You know what I mean? The last war that occurred on U.S. soil was the Revolutionary War, the Civil War. I mean, yeah, statistically, the biggest threat to America is America, not some other country. And statistically, for other countries, the biggest threat is America, So, if you're thinking that, oh man, this war is happening and we should, I need to sell my coin, I would just say that you're literally holding the asset that, even though right now doesn't look so great, it is the only asset that if you needed to leave the country, wherever you're at in the world, you could remember 12 words and, retrieve that. Retrieve your assets. Travel with all your wealth and move somewhere, wherever they'll allow you to go. Even if you were in, detention for, a period of time. If you just could hold on to the memory of those 12 words, when you got out, you could retrieve your wealth. There's never been a scenario that existed in the history of humanity where war occurred and, the average person, the plebes, the everyday Joe, that person could have their home destroyed, could have their assets stripped from them, even their families broken up, but this person could retain their monetary wealth, their cash wealth, after the dust settled on their life. And so there's never been in the history of things an existence where that was a reality, except now. The other thing to realize is that wars are funded by dollars, whether it's the U.S. government that prints it or loans it, or some other government that prints their own currency. It's funded by fiat currency. All wars, all, COINTELPRO, regime changes. They found Saddam Hussein with, I think it was $7 million or $2 million in shrink-wrapped, brand new, fresh from the Federal Reserve bills. Like, where do you think he gets that from? You know what I mean? Have you ever in your life seen bills that came from the Federal Reserve shrink-wrapped? You know what I mean? Like, the package was still on the bills. That's how fresh they were. So, the wars are funded by dollars, okay? It's important to understand that we're going to come to a point in time because of Bitcoin, because of crypto, where wars literally can't be printed up. And the reason why they're printed up, so, I would never do this because it doesn't align with my morals. But maybe if you're a person whose morals aren't as rigid as mine, or at least don't cover that area like mine do, then, if I was just a purely money-based person, at the hint of the Ukraine invasion, I would have bought into Lockheed Martin, or what is it, Arthur Drummond, is it something like that? The defense contract legacy, holders. You know what I mean? Like this is like if defense contracts were a country, these companies would be kings. You know what I'm saying? Where like literally they always get the contracts for these they get the contracts for these defense budgets to be able to produce planes and to produce bullets and guns and all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? All that, right? These guys, I mean, it's multi-billions of dollars. If you ever watch this documentary, I think it's called Endgame. It was about the Iraq War. I watched it like maybe 18 years ago, maybe. But what they would do is basically, if they bought a Hummer for 75 grand, they would charge the U.S. government 200 grand and mark it up. And because it's just a contract that just pays it out, you know what I mean? They pay it out. They threw 20-inch rims on the Hummer, with low pro tires. You know what I'm saying? And they did all kinds of stuff like that. They bought brand new Excursions and Expeditions and threw rims on them and souped them up and all of that. And then the army base manager or whoever is the head of the army base, he's literally on camera saying, look, this is where they're at. They're parked, gridlocked in tandem with each other to where you couldn't move the cars if you wanted to. And they did that because they were parked regularly, but no one used them. Nobody's going off base. You know what I mean? And so they're all just parking it there, to save space. They just shoved it into a corner, but all that's there. You know what I'm saying? There's like tons of stuff, bullets that cost 3 cents or 10 cents or whatever, and they would charge like $2 for the bullet, for every bullet that went out. So, that's what happens in war. It's not, and I say that to say this. The U.S. government, I forgot who said it, man, but politicians are mechanisms that take taxable or money that's the income that comes from tax, tax dollars, and funnels it into corporations. And this, in war, it is the most plainest explanation of what's happening. And so you have politicians that are literally, when the economy is in whatever kind of hoopla it's in, one playbook out of the government's array of things to do is to go to war. And what happens is you print all this extra dollars, you pay manufacturers and these defense contractors out the wazoo, and they accept the money, and then they end up putting it in a bank, and then the bank loans the money out to people and pushes that into the economy. But the problem is, like, other than a pandemic, where you lock everybody down into their homes, other than that, there's no reason to spend or print $1 trillion a day. You know what I mean? There's or $1 trillion a week or whatever, $20 million a day. There's no reason to do that other than creating a scenario like a war where you're justified now in spending that much in order to produce that amount of money, in order to flood it into the economy. And it's really, and I know like what I'm saying, it sounds very morbid. Do your own research. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I'm lying. But what if I'm right? What if I'm right? And people's lives, deaths, people's homes, people's homeland will never be the same again, number one. An incalculable amount of pain, suffering, misery, loss at the expense of an economy. That's what happens. Now we live in a economic, system where that can happen, dude. Like it incentivizes those kinds of plays. And you have people who have the money to fund campaigns and get people elected saying, yes, you should do that. That's going to improve my bottom line. That's going to improve my balance sheet. That's going to improve the value of my stock in the long run. This is where we're at. This is what happens. And so people who are investing in Bitcoin, but not just because it makes money, not just because of that. You know what I mean? People who are investing because they understand how Bitcoin subverts and nullifies the mechanisms that create printing for war impossible virtually. You know what I mean? That's the scenario we're talking about achieving. We're talking about achieving a system where globally you can create deflationary chart movements, where what that means is where people earn money that's worth more as they save it. And so when they save that money and they use that money to go buy assets later, it doesn't hurt as much. It doesn't cost them as much money to buy the asset because the asset that they wanted to buy cost less the longer they saved the money, right? These are scenarios where if these existed, things would be much better, like for everybody around the world. This stuff, since it's a global currency, it would apply globally. It would take effect globally. And so, yeah, man, that's my 2 cents. I know the markets are down. I don't think it's going to last that long. But keep in mind, man, like there's literally a war going on, and you're worried about Bitcoin dropping 7%, 8%, 10%. You know what I mean? Like, put things in perspective here, right? So, yeah, man, I love you. Be safe. Hope everything goes well. Peace.